Today we're comparing the Cine Meter II app. By the way, this is only available for iOS, so sorry about your luck, Android users. The Cine Meter II app in conjunction with the Luxi for All lighting dome compared to a true light meter. This is the Sekonic LiteMaster Pro, the L-478DR. Now this is an incident reader, but I sprung the extra $100 and got the spot meter attachment. So this is pretty rad. Now it's both, and this simply just snaps off like this. You take the incident dome off, and then you take the spot meter on here, and then boom, and now I have a spot meter. So that's pretty rad. You don't really tend to use the spot meter that much in my experience. Primarily you can just do fine with the lighting dome. You can recess it, you can extend it, you can shoot it around. This thing is highly professional and very, very consistent. For some of you that have been on the channel for a while, you know I've been using the Cine Meter II app and the Luxi for All lighting dome for over a year now. And I highly recommend it if you just want to learn how to use a light meter. This is a great way to learn how to use this amazing little tool. However, it is not consistent. This past summer, I, upped the ante, if you will, and bought a real light meter. And I primarily did that because I wanted to up my cinematography game. This is really what separates the pros from the amateurs in terms of, if you want to work in narrative work, shooting narrative films, So that is why I primarily shoot short films and web series, and those are the jobs I go out on, and because that's the kind of audiences and clients that I attract. So for instance, why would I use a light meter? Well, as you'll see from this video today, I walk onto a location with no camera, nothing in my hand except a light meter, and from there I can build and figure out how I'm gonna light a room before a camera even enters the room. Not only that, but if you have one of these and you know how to use one of these, now you can better communicate with your crew, your assistant, your gaffer, whoever it is that's helping you light your sets, because it's just so much easier to go like this. I walk in here and I go, okay, what's the reading on this light right here? Okay, I'm getting an 8 from here where talent's sitting, and I can tell a gaffer, I say, you know what, let's bring that down one stop. What that tells the gaffer is, okay, I need to dial this light down so it reads a 5/6 instead of an 8. You see, this is lingo that helps you be more efficient, more productive on set. That is one of the reasons to get to know and how to use a light meter, but also as a cinematographer, for me, as I'm enhancing my skills overall, it's really helping me understand light and how to shape light, and that is a primary goal as a cinematographer, right? You want to be a painter of light, if you will. So in this little video today, as I'm doing the lighting test, we're going to be comparing both of these, and you'll be able to see what I mean by the inconsistency in this bad boy. And also I'll show you guys kind of how I do a fine-tune on-the-fly white balance. Again, it's not a terrible difference, but in terms of professionalism and consistency, it is kind of a problem. Because right here, now I have set this to ISO 200. I have the GH5 set to 200. So what I believe the native ISO of the GH5 is 200. Unless you're shooting in Vlog, then you have to shoot in 400. Panasonic would like you to believe that the native ISO of the GH5 is 400, but I would argue that it's in fact 200. I would in fact argue that it's even less than 200, which is a bummer because it can't go less than 200. But realistically, the camera is not nearly as fast as Panasonic would like you to believe. And I have a video I can do in the future showing you how you can really test what the true native ISO of your camera is, but you have to have a light meter to do that. But that'll be in a future video. But for right now, right here we can see that this is giving me a 2.8 ISO 200. It's jumping. As you see, it's very consistent. It's jumping just based off a slight movement here. It's going from 2.8, and I think it's just because here it's picking up the Kino and there it's not. So 2.8 to the camera, 3.2 to the Kino. And you'll see here that is terribly off when I introduce the Sekonic. So now here the Sekonic is 200, 180 degree shutter, same settings, 23.976. I have the dome out because that's just kind of way how the Luxi is by default, right? And here we can see, now I'm getting f4 to camera. If I point it to the Kino, I get a f4 still. So see there, this thing is terribly, terribly off. It's giving me a 2.8 towards the camera, 3.2 towards the Kino. And what's really nice about the Sekonic, where you don't have to worry about shielding this thing, you can just duck it in there. And now we can see really what the camera is seeing. So now we're blocking out the fill, the key, we're blocking out everything, the top, the bounce. And now we know the camera is really seeing a 2.8. So that's what I would actually, if this is where this is where I was, that's why I have my lens set to 2.8. And that is ideally properly exposed, right? You know, all things considered. But you see it's a 2.8 and it has a little bit of a degree there. But yeah, that's it. And then if you do it like this, keep it recessed, keep the dome recessed, and we shoot it at the Kino, now the Kino is still showing us an f4. But now if I shoot it towards my fill light over there, now we know my fill is a 2. So it's just, you can really see the benefits of getting a real light meter. Again, if you're interested in kind of honing your cinematography skills and just the way that you're learning how to paint with light and shape the light. So here we are walking into this location for the first time. You know, this is our example setup here. There's no lights on in here, obviously, just this light coming through the window. What I like to do when getting to a location, because unfortunately, with such the low budgets that I'm working with, a lot of times I don't even get to the location until the day that we're actually shooting. So this is you know, we're gonna do this example just as if I'm like on a low budget job, you know, seeing it for the first time. One way that you can prepare is when you have the address to the location, at least you can start looking up some images of it with Google Maps. You can plug it into an app called Sunseeker. Sunseeker will let you know the path of the sun as it's hitting the building, which is extremely beneficial, you know, if there's a huge window at the house or the location that you're at and you want to know what hours of the day the sun is just pelting through that building, you know, so you can work around that. But what I always like to do is I walk in, kill all the lights, especially if you're doing like a corporate shoot or some kind of like office setting. The overhead lights are really horrible. I call them shop lights, and they generally have a really strong green tint to them, and they're gonna kill your skin tones. So I would always highly recommend killing all the overheads immediately, and that way you can really see what the overall ambience, room tone, lighting-wise is going on in your room. Like here in this example, we have this huge window. I have my light meter, and we're just gonna take some readings just to see how much light is actually coming through the window, because we're going to work with this, you know, unless we're doing like a day for night or something like that, which I've done videos in this exact location of lighting tests and things. So I'm going to put links to those down in the description below. In this scenario, we're not doing day for night. We're actually going to be working off of the window and try our best to see how we can use it. Now, what I would always say too is let's frame around it. Let's not show this huge blown out window. But one way to battle blown out windows is pretty simple. You just get a reading of the window, and then your key light should at least be 2 stops above that, and you should be fine not blowing out the window. You know, that's a good way if you want to see what's going on behind you, if you want to build that depth looking through the window, kind of like what I've been doing in my intro videos lately. That's a pretty simple setup. You just get a reading of what the window is giving out, and yeah, so let's do that now. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Incident reader, you know, you just pop that out, and I'm gonna go over here and I'm gonna take a reading of the window. And there you see it's a 5.6, but this is with the ISO set to 400. So it's giving us a 5.6 at ISO 400, and here you can even see what the lux is. It's 420 lux. So knowing that, now that I know that my window right here is a 5.6, then I know, like, okay, I want my key light to be 2 stops above that. So my key light needs to be around like an 11, you know, and that way you could point the camera directly at that window, you know, if that was a window you could see through, because that's not an actual window. It looks completely really blown out on this GH5 here, but it's actually like bricks from the 70s. So you can't even see through that. It's not an actual window. But if that was an actual window where we could see what's going on, you know, you could see like maybe LA out there or whatever, and you wanted to see that in your shot, we know, okay, since that window is giving us a 5.6, we can shoot looking at it. And if we want to see out it, we got to have our key light, meaning the interior light, giving us an f11, which that is a pretty strong light. You would need something like a Kino 4 bank, or I imagine an Aperture 120D hopefully gives you that output. So yeah, keep that in mind. But now that we've seen what the Sekonic gave us, a 5.6, now I'm gonna try to see what the Cine Meter II app will give me. And it's pretty simple. You don't have to like do too much because it already, you know, you have the Luxi for All lighting dome on there. You just want to make sure that it's on up over your front camera, and then you need to put this on where it says, you know, now it's in Luxi mode. It knows that the Luxi is attached, and you just make sure that your dome is completely covering the front camera, and you should be able to get a pretty good reading. Let me make sure my ISO is the same. Yes, I had it set to 400 on here. And you can't really store it. There's no way to store it, unfortunately. That's another downside of this. So, because as soon as I move it away, it takes it off. I don't know if there's a way to hold it or not. It's giving me a 5, it's jumping between a 5 and a 5.6, and the lux is around 1,000. So even though like it is pretty close, it is reading me a 5.6, but the lux was way higher than what the Sekonic was telling me. Okay, there we go, 5.6, 300 lux. And on the Cine Meter II app, I'm getting a F5 at 755 lux. So the lux is way higher than what it actually is. And not only that, but it's reading me a stop under. So the Sekonic was showing me a 5.6, and this was showing me an F5. So that's just one instance right there where you would be a little screwed if you were relying on the Cine Meter II app. All right, so for this particular test, I'm gonna be pretending that it's two people talking here, right? So one person's gonna be this way, one person's gonna be this way. And a good general rule of thumb is to be, you know, you wanna shoot at the shadow side. But because we're working with this ambient light that's coming through here, you could do a couple different things. We could completely start flagging off this window, which we totally could with some sheets of Duvetine. But as I'm looking at it right here, I mean, we are still getting an okay shadow, probably not enough for my liking. But what I'm gonna do is set up the backlight, because generally a really simple, easy thing to do when you have two people talking is to have their backlights also be the key light, right? So like that, her backlight will also be my key light. My backlight will be her key light. And that's kind of like what is kind of the way, you know, and then cameras over here shooting into the shadow side. And then you generally tend to get a pretty nice image. So that's kind of what we're going to be doing here today. But now the downside of this is that we're low budget and we have to deal with all this light pumping in the room. Now, how do you do that? Well, you can start shaping it, right? You start shaping that light, and like we already know, that's a 5.6. So, okay, so here we go. I have the Kino up over here, and I can show you guys where that is. There's the Kino. That is the 4-bank LED, the Kino LED Hybrid, right? The cool thing is like, now this is being the backlight, right? And you can even frame this in a way, because since we're going to be shooting at the shadow side, we're not even going to see that light. We're never going to see this light, even though it's directly behind her, right? So what you do is you take a reading of this back here. So I'm going to go on this side of her, and you can hold your hand up to kind of like flag off the shadow light. Okay, right there at ISO 400, which is just what I dialed in because that's what I like to shoot the Pocket 4K at, we're getting an 8, right? And now here on my shadow side, I'm going to recess the bulb so I get a more proper reading. And actually what I can do is I can turn this off. And I want to see what the shadow side is. So here, the camera side is a 2.8. So a 2.8 to an 8. But see, we are going to get a little bit of spill there, so that should probably help us out. Yeah, well, that's a 2.8. So we're getting a 2.8 on our shadow side, and on our back side, we're getting an 8. That's a huge contrast ratio. An 8 to a 2.8, I'd probably bring this down a tad. I'd probably make this more like a 5.6. So we can start dimming this down, and let's see. There we go. Now it's a 5.6. So I'm getting 5.6 on the key side, and we're getting a 2.8 on the shadow side. That's a pretty good ratio. Now, if you didn't have the Sekonic, and you only had this Luxi for All lighting dome with the Cine Meter II app, let's see what that's giving us. It's only showing me a 4.5 on the key side, so that's not good. And then it's showing me a 1.6 over here. So, and when I take my hand away, you know, but with this I can't recess the dome, so I really have to block that out. And it's giving me a 1.8 on, or there's a 2, a 1.8. Do you see what I mean? It's very inconsistent how much it jumps around. And then on this side, it already went from a 4 to a 3.5. It's just too unreliable, too inconsistent. But as you can see, I am getting a great color temperature reading of this room. The room is giving me this light right here I know is reading at 5200 Kelvin. And that's probably exactly what that is, because those are daylight balance bulbs, but I do have the Flozier on it, which is just like a full grid. So it is gonna, it's gonna warm up that light just a tad. It's really still really good tool to read color temperature, but I don't use it anymore to read the readings of the light. Okay, so here you can see kind of what we're getting on the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. I do have the contact zoom 28 to 85. It's wide open at a 3.3, but that's with the Metabones, so it's a stop brighter than a 3.3, technically. So here you can see what our image is looking like. We could crunch her down even more. In order to do that, we could do something with this light, because this is what's really hitting her from this side, right? So I could throw up a sheet of diffusion and kind of bring what's coming in through here down through the ambient room. You could also, I could come here. I could drop in a flag somewhere around here to stop this so much spill coming around. Because see, it's kind of like I can literally see the light spilling over here on the side. So really, realistically, what I should do is flag this off, and then this whole area wouldn't have all this spill over here onto our shadow side. So that's probably what I will do before we jump to like this big ordeal of setting up diffusion here. What we would do is just flag that off, so there's not so much spill on her shadow side, and kind of help that out. And that will bring her down significantly more. I don't know how much. I don't want to bring her down too much, because I am just kind of liking this little bit of here. This is, this is fairly close to Rembrandt. I don't know, fairly close. I mean, you can see we're starting to get a little bit of something right there. But we'll just play around with the shadow and see what it gives us. But before we do that, what I do want to do is show you guys like how you can white balance without like needing a gray card or anything. So in order to do that, let's see. We can come here, and you are going to need a monitor that can give you RGB waveform. Let's see, let's go back. So here we can change our waveform to RGB, okay, and actually RGB parade. Okay, so this is the parade here in conjunction with the vector scope. Here you'll see our vector scope, and the vector scope is just a tad off going this way, because that's our skin tone line, the line that shoots in the middle. And here you can see our levels are okay. I mean, it is peaking a little high there. Maybe I'll bring that light down. So here we can see what's going on. So generally what you want to do is white balance. So down here we can go to our white balance, and we want to do something more custom. So we're going to go here to the custom white balance, and all we want to do is kind of get these in a row here. So in order to have like kind of a correct white balance, the main key is trying to get all of these red, green, and blue channels kind of identical across the board as much as you can. I say identical by like the same levels, right? So this is kind of what you do. So you start with your little slider here, but then the tint is going to help you jump around as well. Because see here, we're pumping up that blue, and then this way we can bring this down to bring that green back down. And if you can watch this in conjunction with the vector scope and really see what's going on here. See, it's getting a little too blue. This is pretty good right here. We just need this red to come back up, and we need that to scoot over a little bit. So maybe we can play around with adjusting the tint. I don't know how crazy we want to go with it, but see, that's going too far now. One way we can do with this is to up the size of our vector scope here. There we go. So see, now our vector scope is a lot larger, so we can see what we're dealing with here. See, we're getting too far off the line there. So we want to bring this back, bring this back. That's pretty good. And we want to push it this way a little more. That red is still down pretty far. See, this is where I like the GH5 a little better for stuff like this, because the GH5, you can really, it has the little grid and you just click and drag it anywhere. It's a lot easier to fine tune your white balance on a GH5 versus this Blackmagic, because really all they give you is these little sliders. And it's a little difficult. Here you can see my blue is coming up, but my red is just a tad down. So look at this. I can bring it around, and that's pretty decent right there. Let's see what that looks like. Look at that. Look at that. To me, that looks way, way better. At this point, we have been just comparing the incident readings of both of these devices, and I thought it would be nice to compare the spot reading of each of these devices. Now, this gets a little interesting because the Cine Meter II app, when you're using it as an incident reader, you have to use the Luxi for All lighting dome to get, a proper reading. You don't have to, but it's highly recommended. But when you do spot reading, it is using the back camera, right? Because now it needs that to do the spot readings. And this particular, as most Apple devices, the front camera is sometimes a lesser quality than the back camera. So I don't know how that affects the overall reading of it, if it does at all. But however, I have calibrated both the back and the front cameras for the Cine Meter II app, because I did try my best to always use this for both spot and incident readings. So it has been calibrated. And I thought, since I, shelled out the $118 for this spot reader attachment, I've only used it a couple times, by the way. I don't really tend to use this too much, but I just wanted to get it so I would just have a good all-around professional light meter. The Cine Meter II app tends to be off usually by about a half, a third a stop, sometimes a full stop difference, which is kind of a deal breaker. In my experience of running around doing shoots with both of these for, since the summertime when I picked this Sekonic up, there's been times where the Cine Meter was off by over 2 stops, and that was really crazy. We didn't really run into that much today. In my experience, you only use a spot reading of when you're checking background lights, or maybe checking the rim light or something like that, and you generally take it from the camera's angle, right? And generally, what's inside your camera is already a spot meter. That's actually what the camera is. It's a highly expensive spot meter. So that's why you don't really tend to use the spot meter too much. But if you're in a future setup before the camera gets in there and you want to check the background lights and things of that nature, it's better to take a spot reading of those. And generally, you just do incident readings of your key and fill, and then spot readings of everything else, in my experience, and stuff like that. So if we were to do that, let's say I was gonna take a spot reading of the wall behind the camera. And if I was to do that directly off to the camera, I'm getting an F7. So that's the spot reading that I'm getting on the Cine Meter II app. Now I will pop off the spot reader. I'll take off the incident dome off of the Sekonic and put on the spot attachment, much like that. And now I can look through here, point it right where my Cine Meter II app was, hit the button, and I'm getting an F11. So there is a huge difference. So there you go. It's just a way smarter, faster way to work. I don't know. A lot of people are getting away from it. Most DPs nowadays only use light meters if they're shooting on film, which makes way more sense. But I like to use it always. I like to use it like you saw me use it. I use it to read the lights. I use it to read the room tone. I use it for almost everything. Yeah, along with all the other tools that the monitors offer. So you can see that it really pays off to have a good monitor that gives you lots of tools to use. So for now, that's going to be it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I don't know what this really looks like because my monitor is on the Blackmagic, so it probably looks like crap, but that's okay. Not many of you stick around this long in the videos anyways. So as always, thanks for watching, and for now, that is a wrappy wrap.